what a goddamn night it was in Sydney. Boy, was this not a good one, you guys. Was this not a good one? It was. And when this fight was made with Adesanya and Sean Strickland, originally it was supposed to be Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis, right? We had the whole thing. There was the face-off in the octagon after Dricus du Plessis knocked out a top 5 all-time middleweight in Robert Whittaker. And we thought, oh my goodness, Robert Whittaker is one of the best middleweights of all time, certainly top 5 in the history books. And he just got knocked out by Dricus du Plessis by a jab. And when you look at the KO, it was so silly. Like, Dricus du Plessis threw a jab and then he backed away and then he covered his head. Like, it was kind of silly, but at the end of it, they had the face-off. Adesanya dropped through the whole kitchen sink at the guy, right? Dropping N-words at him, saying like, you know, you do a 23andMe, like, it would tell you where you're from, and, you know, I will show you where you're from, saying nigga and all that. And everybody thought that it was going to be Adesanya and Dricus. But if you look at the calendar, you would notice that if Adesanya is going to fight Dricus du Plessis in Australia, in Sydney, where Adesanya would like to fight, that is in 2 months. And when a lot of people saw this fight with Robert Whittaker and Dricus du Plessis, they didn't really think that not just Dricus du Plessis wouldn't win, is that they didn't think Dricus du Plessis would have a hard time fighting in 2 months. They thought, okay, I don't think this guy's gonna win, but if he does win, he's probably gonna fight Adesanya in 2 months in Australia. And they didn't really think that 2 months was gonna be an easy task for Dricus du Plessis to turn around. But it was too quick for him. It was 2 months. He didn't really have a lot of time to heal up. He had a long training camp. I mean, he was training for Robert Whittaker. My goodness, that guy's a top 5 middleweight of all time. It was just a tall order for a guy that the betting odds would say he would lose to against Adesanya. So then we get Sean Strickland. And the reason why I give that to you is to show you just how unlikely of a champion Sean Strickland was. This wasn't necessarily the biggest upset that we've seen. I mean, we have seen some tremendously surprising favorites, right? We've witnessed Ronda Rousey, who was the greatest female fighter of all time, get head kicked into oblivion by Holly Holm. And if you look at Holly Holm, like, she's a great fighter. She could have beat Ronda Rousey, but it was just Ronda Rousey was just too damn good. We've had insane upsets where nobody would have thought that Nate Diaz was going to beat Adesanya. Nobody thought that Holly Holm was going to do that in Melbourne, Australia, by the way, against one of the best in the world. There was debates that Ronda Rousey could compete against Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match, and that was not a joke. Excuse me, that was not a joke. Nobody gave a single thought of Holly Holm beating Ronda Rousey. Nobody would have given a single thought that Juliana Pena was going to tire out and exhaust and beat down one of the best female fighters of all time. Number one, certainly, and if you don't think number one, then she's number two. and best female fighters of all time. Right, there's Chris Cyborg out there as well. We have seen crazy upsets. But in my opinion, Sean Strickland was one of the most... My bad. Sean Strickland is the most unlikely champion. Not just champion. The most unlikely contender to face Adesanya. And the most unlikely champion to ever hold that belt in history. You look at a guy like Sean Strickland, he's an unfiltered guy. Unfiltered is an understatement. He would tell you things that it is against everything that is going on right now, with people saying you shouldn't say what you just think. You should think about what you're gonna say. Sean Strickland, he's not one of those guys. He is brash. He's gonna tell you as it is. And I think for some people, they look at Sean Strickland as a bit of a clown. They don't really take the guy seriously. They think he's a class clown. They think what he says is more than outlandish. It's... People would say that sometimes he's stupid. He fights stupid. He's a little bit of a dum-dum. He talks like a dum-dum and all this type of stuff. You know, to try to box with Alex Pereira, who had insane knockout power, he was a stupid guy, you know. He was a clown. People kind of wrote him off as just this guy, and while people loved him, people kind of liked his persona, they didn't really respect his fighting capabilities to the point that they would think that he would beat Adesanya, one of the best middleweights of all time, and who I think is the greatest middleweight of all time. I am now comfortable in saying that Adesanya is one of the greatest of all time, just because I do believe in the idea, and I heard this just like this week. I heard this from Chael. An artist's work is most recognized when he passes away, when he dies. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he dies literally. It could be his career, when his career has died, or he dies, he passes away. But an artist's work is the most appreciated, the most recognized when they pass away, right? And there are certain artists who don't necessarily get the recognition and appreciation, adulation that they deserve while they still are alive, while they still compete, while they are still in that world. But when they are no longer there, that is when they are most appreciated. And I feel like Adesanya belongs in that realm of guys that are truly unappreciated when it comes to how great he is. And now that he's fallen, like, this guy has lost 3 fights out of his last 7 fights. He's gone 4-3. He's gone 4-3. That would be like being 2-1. Right? 2-1, you win 2, you lose 1. Like, it would be like that. Right? But he went 4-3 in his last 7 fights. I feel like it's done. Right? Like, I feel like I just feel like he doesn't have it anymore. And I feel like we deserve to give him the most recognition now that he's done. Right? And I'm seeing it with guys like Aljamain Sterling, with guys like Demetrius Johnson. When Demetrius Johnson left the UFC, he's now being more recognized, he's being more appreciated. Aljamain Sterling, when he lost, people kind of looked at him as a clown. People looked at him as a fake champion, a paper champion. He didn't deserve to be there. And it's hard to love a guy when he's on top. But when he's on the floor, when he's on the bottom, you can relate with him because a lot of people, they're not Aljamain Sterling, right? They're not the bantamweight champion of the world, and they're one of the best bantamweights of all time. It's hard to relate to a guy that's winning in life. It's easy to relate to a guy that's losing in life, especially there's a majority of people in life that are losing in life. I would say there's a bigger percentage of guys that are, of people in life that are losing in life more than they are winning in life. And it does depend on how you measure that and all that type of stuff, but it's easier to relate to a guy that is losing in life than they are in winning in life. And when I see Aljamain Sterling, I can tell that he's now being more appreciated now that not necessarily his career is dead, but his best days are certainly, I don't want to say behind him, but those were his best days when he beat Petr Yan, former champion, when he beat one of the greatest bantamweights of all time in TJ Dillashaw, and to beat a mastermind in Henry Cejudo. I felt like that was his biggest moment. I felt like that was his biggest name that he's beaten. And I can tell that he's now being more appreciated now that he's gone, and I feel like we need to give Adesanya some of that respect that we give to these guys who are not necessarily dead, but it's done, right? Like, whatever was happening, their best days, their prime, their championship, whatever was going on, it's over, it's done. And for the longest time, I considered Anderson Silva to be the greatest middleweight of all time, because we need to give these guys credit. We need to give these guys that were once great, were once the man, they were once on top. We need to tell the story of who they were and how much they meant to us, right? And I wasn't necessarily a fan when Anderson Silva was competing in his best days, but I was certainly there to hear how great he was, and I wanted to be one of those guys that are preaching how great he was, and I considered him to be the greatest middleweight of all time just because I understood that we need to tell these guys stories. We need to tell their legacies because they can't. They are no longer in a position where they could compete and they could have that moment where they knock out a guy and people are saying they're the best. People are chanting their name in a sold out arena when they just knocked out a guy. And we need to tell how great these guys are, and I feel like we need to put that title that we once put to Anderson Silva, that we once attached to his name, I feel like we need to attach that to Israel Adesanya's name as one of the greatest, certainly one of the greatest middleweights of all time, and in my opinion, the greatest middleweight of all time, because I think he deserves to have that. He doesn't necessarily have the accolades that Anderson Silva has, but I think at this point he has surpassed how great Anderson Silva was. And I know a lot of people would disagree, and a lot of people wouldn't really like what I just said, but it's what I believe in, and I think he deserves it, man. I think we need to finally give him some of that respect that he deserves. for what he did. Like, you go look at his record, he has fought killers and beat killers. Killers. Powhatan, just his combat sports career in its entirety, in his kickboxing days, everything. He fought killers, man, and he certainly deserves to be up there. And if you disagree, well then he deserves to be on top. But man, Sean Strickland just came in there. He was upset minded, you know, he wasn't supposed to beat Adesanya. Like, that wasn't supposed to be the story. It wasn't supposed to be how this whole thing plays out, but he just did not give a damn. He wanted to beat the guy. He wanted to become a world champion, and he went out there and he did that. And man, he was just the most unlikely champion that I've ever seen. And even though I thought Strickland was going to win, I predicted he was going to win. You can go look at my Twitter, at Terrific. It's spelled the way that my YouTube name is spelled, but then I added an ER, you know, play of words, Tafik. I added an RE, so it's Terrific. I mean, I don't know why I did that, but I predicted Sean Strickland was gonna win, and I thought he was going to win by split decision. And even though I thought Sean Strickland was going to win, I still didn't quite expect him to win that way, just because of how much I respected Adesanya's skills. I just didn't think that Sean Strickland, out of all people that this guy has fought, I mean, this guy's fought killers. Robert Whittaker twice, Vettori twice, Cannonier, Paulo Costa. Like, my goodness. Fought Powhatan 3 times, you guys. Okay? And I just didn't expect him to be handled like that. I don't really want to say handled, because it wasn't like he got ass whooped, like, you know, as bad as Holloway Volk 3 was. Like, he didn't lose like that, but it was kind of like that. Man, what a shocking night it was, dude. What a shocking night it was. And there was a lot of people that said this is gonna be a bad pay-per-view. You know, you look at it, there's not a lot of big names. We've had a lot of great cards, and a lot of them delivered, but nobody expected it to be this one, because people thought that Strickland was gonna lose, Adesanya was gonna win easily. It was gonna be a one-sided ass whooping, and Adesanya will be crowned and new, and still, I should say. And everybody thought it was just that. It was gonna be a boring fight, and it wasn't really gonna be that good. The press conference was gonna be great, but the fights, you know, it wasn't really gonna be there. But man, this fight card delivered. The main card started off with 2 first-round finishes. 2 first-round finishes. And not just that, not just the main card started off with 2 first-round finishes. The entire pay-per-view, the entire card started off with 2 first-round finishes, I believe. It was wild. It was wild. 2 first-round finishes to start off the card. I mean, this was an incredible night of fights in Sydney. I gotta go take a piss. Hold on, you guys. Give me a bit of a break. there we go. We're back. And yeah, like as I was saying, like, it was an incredible night of fights. And one thing I do want to mention is Laura Sanko. I mean, she did an incredible job for her debut, right? I know this isn't her first rodeo. This isn't the first time that she's commentated a UFC event, but I did have questions of, can she do it at a pay-per-view where the stage is the biggest, the lights are the brightest, the crowd is the largest? Could she do it, right? Because I've heard her commentary on some UFC fight nights and it was great. There was a lot of knowledge that she can interpret from what's happening to words, because as a UFC fan, you're not really a mixed martial artist all the time. Like, you look at an average UFC fan, he doesn't do mixed martial arts, but he's a fan of the sport. And I think Laura Sanko I think she is an incredible commentator when it comes to interpreting what is happening on camera, on what's happening to words, right? Like, she can tell you what is going on, she can tell you what is happening. And I did have questions like, yeah, she can look good on a fight night on some, Dana White Contender Series, but can she do it in a pay-per-view, right, where the stage is the biggest, lights are bright? And boy, she do a damn great job. I am impressed by her first showing on a pay-per-view, and I am excited to see a lot more, because I think she is just a breath of fresh air to hear a woman on the commentary booth. It's just something that I've never even thought like that would happen. Like, I always thought it was gonna be a lot of the fighters that once competed, the Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan isn't really a fighter, but Paul Felder, Michael Bisping, Dominic Cruz, big names like Joe Rogan. And Laura Sanko, she has made it, dude. And I feel like her passion and dedication to the sport and to being a commentator is paralleled to Jon Anik. She does a lot of homework, and I watched the live weigh-in show, and hearing DC talk about Laura Sanko that way, how Laura Sanko is gonna call her 50 times about a Dana White Contender Series, like, oh, what do you think about this fight, and all that type of stuff. Like, I can see how passionate she is. And when the first fight happened in the early prelims, because I woke up early in the morning, I woke up 6 a.m. just to catch, I slept like 7 hours, just to catch the very first fight, so I could hear the intro, and so I could see Laura Sanko, how she would do in her first sentences in the pay-per-view, because it was the big stage. And she did a damn good job, man. She did a damn good job. And immediately when it was their time to talk, when they were gonna introduce the fight card, they were gonna introduce the first fight, Laura Sanko was just so damn giddy. Like, she had a smile on her face, she was excited, she was pumped up, and I could just tell the enthusiasm that she had to be on the big stage. And she's made it, and she did a damn good job. I think she is a breath of fresh air, and I expect her to do a lot more of these. And I do expect her to be a bigger name when it comes to these pay-per-view commentators. And one thing I also do want to talk about is, I mean, my goodness, the rest of the fights. I mean, I've been talking about Sean Strickland, how he upset Adesanya, and Sean Strickland, like, my goodness, man. I could just tell how much this meant to Sean Strickland, dude. How much this meant to him to become a world champion and to come from nothing to be on top of the world. Like, it wasn't necessarily to hold that belt, it was to show that you can tell your own story, that no matter the circumstances that you had, joking about if you can dodge a beer bottle, you can dodge a fist, you can become a fighter, and saying that his father was abusive to his mother, and his father telling him on his deathbed, like, it was really bad, like they really didn't have a damn good relationship. He told his father to just kill himself because his life was gonna go nowhere, and his father, was just like, you better end it now or you're just gonna continue your suffering. And his father on his deathbed told him to, like, told Sean Strickland. And by the way, earlier I was saying Sean Strickland told his father to, his father should just kill himself. And his father told him, when his father was about to pass away, he told Sean, like, I wasn't the best to you, but at least I didn't molest you. Like, my goodness. And he was talking about, like, his childhood. It was just, white piece of trash. Not white trash. And his teacher told him that he's the reason why, people invented prisons. And his uncle was, like, a neo-Nazi and all that type of stuff. Like, to grow up from nothing, to just not tell your past circumstances, to not tell the things that have happened in your life, to not tell these past circumstances that have happened to you define who you are, to not allow those things to tell you who you should be and who you're going to become. For Sean Strickland, man, it was an inspiring story, and I thought that he would lose at a point in time in this fight week. And on fight day, I woke up around 6 a.m. and I thought, man, I don't think Adesanya is going to win. Because for the longest time, I thought Adesanya was going to win. There was a point in time where I thought, I think Adesanya might lose. And I'm like, dude, no. He's not going to lose. Like, he's one of the best of all time. Like, there's no way this guy's going to lose. Like, Adesanya beat Powhatan, who knocked out Sean Strickland. He beat Jared Cannonier, who beat Sean Strickland. There's no way Sean Strickland is going to beat him. And on fight day, I woke up 6 a.m. and I thought, man, Sean Strickland is going to beat Adesanya today. And I just believed in what Sean Strickland said, because I saw how much this meant to him. I saw how much he wanted to win badly. I saw how much he took this seriously, man. Because one of the things that Sean Strickland will always tell you is that, like, oh, I'm gonna fight Jared Cannonier. Oh, what should I do? He's gonna ask the media, what should I do against this guy? What do you guys think that I should do against him? Because he doesn't really watch a lot of tapes. He's gonna go in there, he's gonna fight. And I just saw and I just heard this intention from Sean Strickland to become a world champion, and I was like, man, this guy's not kidding. He's not here to make people laugh. He's not here to fuck around. He's here to find out if he is really the world champion or not. And boy, he was who he said He was a world champion. He did what he said he was going to do. Man, what a fight card it was. Rest of the fights were incredible. Just to recap the fights for you guys very quickly. To start off the night, or I think it was the morning in Sydney. Morning, I should say. Early prelims, Kevin Jusset won by first round submission, and then Gabriel Miranda won by first round submission. Charles Radke also had, the infamous post-fight interview dropping the F word faggot, not, the word fuck. But, and then Nasrat Haqparast. I thought this was going to be fight of the night until I saw the flyweight matchup against Manel Kape and Felipe Dos Santos, and fought Landon Quinones, who was a tough fighter, literally a tough fighter, TUF. Lost in the tough season in Team McGregor, and then he got a short notice call to fight Nasrat Haqparast in Sydney, a couple of miles away from where he resides, which I believe is in America. And then Jamie Mullarkey won by decision, and Chepe Mariscal won by second round TKO, where he picked up Jack Jenkins, who's by the way undefeated in the UFC, 3-0, picked him up, slammed him on the ground. Jack Jenkins posted on his right arm. Chepe Mariscal heard a pop. Fight was over. Turns out Jack Jenkins injured, dislocated, specifically his right elbow. And it was a bad one, man. It was a bad one. Carlos Ulberg won by third round submission, which, I thought he was going to win a decision. When he had Da Un Jung, that's weird. It says here his name is Jung Da Un. I think it's Da Un Jung. When he had Da Un Jung in that rear naked choke, he flattened him out, got him in a rear naked choke. I did not see a tap. So, Carlos Ulberg trying to chase down the finish, 11 seconds in, or 11 seconds left. He tried to go for a submission, failed, and I thought it was gonna go to a decision, and it turns out Da Un Jung actually tapped. He just couldn't see it, so they went to the replay. They showed that Da Un Jung tapped, so they declared it a third round 4-minute and 49-second submission for City Kickboxing's Carlos Ulberg. And Tyson Pedro in the main card, to start off the main card, got a first round KO against Anton Turkalj, the Pleasure Man. And he did, the little samurai thing when he knocked out Anton Turkalj. And then afterwards, Justin Tafa rematched Austin Lane in a fight where there was a eye poke that ended their first fight, and that fight was supposed to be a banger. And I have proof. You go watch Justin Tafa and Austin Lane 2. You could tell that if they fought the first time, it would be a banger, but unfortunately it ended very early because of an eye poke, which was one of the nastiest one that we've ever seen. And that fight was supposed to be the banging fight. Like, that was supposed to be a banger. I think it happened in the Topuria Emmett fight night. They fought in Jacksonville. It was a heavyweight fight. It was supposed to be a banger. I believe it was the fight that was gonna open up the main card, if I'm not wrong. And then there was an early scare because Austin Lane hit him with another eye poke. All good. Justin Tafa continues to fight and then gets the first round KO. I should say TKO in the first round. And then Manel Kape fights a short notice Felipe Dos Santos, which is a replacement fight for Kai Kara-France, who was concussed. That's why he couldn't continue. And if you think that he was ducking Manel Kape, think again, because he's fighting in Sydney. Obviously, he didn't wanna miss this fight in Sydney. And he was fighting Manel Kape. Unfortunately, had to pull out. So they took this undefeated Felipe Dos Santos guy, who was a student in that Chute Boxe gym, training partners with Charles Oliveira, famous Charles Oliveira, training under Chute Boxe, where Charles Oliveira also trains under. And Manel Kape loses. Manel Kape wins by decision and earns a fight of the night, meaning both of them would earn $50,000 in bonus. Oh, and actually, I forgot to mention, I believe Tyson Pedro, or was it Justin Tafa? I think it was Tyson Pedro that got a performance bonus for their first round KO. And then after Manel Kape and Felipe Dos Santos, a great scrap, fight of the night, there comes Taito Ivasa, Alexander Volkov. Volkov gets a second round submission, which is, I just really didn't see it coming. First of all, I thought Tuivasa was gonna win. Volkov beats him, second round submission. And then here we go, the main event. Sean Strickland beats Adesanya by unanimous decision in the fifth, not in the fifth round. Beats him by unanimous decision and earns a performance. I think I need to speak slowly more. Yeah, gets a performance bonus against Adesanya, middleweight champion of the world. What a night in Sydney. What an incredible night. And that is the recap for my very first episode of, I think I'm going to name it 60% Leather. How about that, you guys? 60% Leather. I think it'll be a show that I'll do a lot more now. Where I talk about the sport that I love most. And I'm gonna talk about it all day, every single day. Or at least I'll try to. I mean, I don't even think I can do all day. Certainly not every single day. But, we'll try. We'll make it happen. I cannot wait to see Sean Strickland. I just realized, you guys. By the way, I'm calling it 60% Leather because I believe the UFC, the modern belt, I think that is 60% leather. Right? I think it is 60% leather, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that's a number totally just made up. It's not really 60% leather. I just think so. But it's a good name. It's a unique name because I want this kind of show that I do to be unique. Have a name that people will remember. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the UFC cover curse. By the way, it strikes again. Adesanya is in the deluxe edition cover of UFC 5 and he loses. I mean, do not be surprised if Alexander Volkanovski loses to Ilya Topuria, and I do think that he will. I do think, I mean, this is my current prediction. I could change it, but probably not. But I'm gonna have to go with Ilya Topuria. I'm just so high on this guy. I think he is going to win. I think he is going to become a superstar, and I think he will beat Volk. I think he will beat Volkanovski, man. I think he's coming, man, and I know a lot of people don't really think that, but I've always thought that if this guy could beat Josh Emmett, and I thought it was gonna beat Josh Emmett, if he could do it, like, man, he could be a world champion, and I think he will be. I think he's going to beat Alexander Volkanovski when they do fight. So let's see the A Sports UFC game, the cover. Curse strikes again, gets the greatest middleweight of all time, Israel Adesanya. Man, what a night in Sydney. What a damn good night. And by the way, Poatan, flash news, guys, he is the biggest hater I've ever seen. First of all, this guy doesn't just beat Adesanya 3 times. He has beaten every single guy that Adesanya has lost to in his career. He knocked out Sean Strickland, and afterwards he actually trained with Sean Strickland to beat Adesanya. And he even picked Sean Strickland to beat Adesanya, and just before that, he beat Jan Blachowicz. So now he's beaten every single guy that Adesanya has lost to. I think Adesanya's like, I mean, what is his record? I think we can see here. What is his record? He is, oh, I don't think they showed the record here. Okay. Hold on a moment, guys. I think he's like, yeah, he's 24-3 with 3 losses, which is first loss that he's had, Jan Blachowicz, Poatan beat him. Second loss that he's had, Poatan beat him, and Sean Strickland. Third loss that he's had, Poatan knocked out Sean Strickland. I mean, look at this guy. He is the biggest hater in combat sports that I've ever seen. It is official. What a night in Sydney. Woke up 6 a.m. I was pulling, man. I was trying to hype me up, dude. I was trying to hype me up. You know, and man, it was worth it, dude. 7 hours of sleep. Woke up 6 a.m. Worth it just to tune in. UFC 294 in Sydney, Australia. Was a great night. Commentators were on fire, especially Laura Senko. And man, it was overall just a great night. I mean, her debut as well, and my goodness, 1 for the record books, folks. 1 for the record books. I am Tefik with your dude, I am just so dizzy right now. My brain is kind of scrambled, but we're we're efforting with your UFC 294 recap, post pay-per-view recap, however you want to call it, 294 recap. I'll be out of here. See you guys in a while. Yeah, dude, I mean, it was an incredible night. Sean Strickland and new, baby, and new. Guess he is the damn man, baby. Oh yes.